Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. This is my friend Maggie.
Hello.
I have a guest today. We've had a lot of guests recently. It's been good.
I felt like me coming was less special because last week Knittin was here and everybody was so excited about Knittin.
Everybody loves Knittin.
I feel like I'm kind of a letdown after Knittin.
They don't know you. You don't have to be a letdown.
I'm not a cheerful man.
It's all right. It's okay. Knittin is very special, but everybody is great.
That's true.
Everybody is great. Everybody has their own. Maggie just learned to knit. You learned to knit in May.
I think it was May.
It
feels like a long time, but it actually wasn't that long ago.
It was right after you got back from England.
That's true.
So Maggie and I met at church choir, and yeah, the first thing you learned about me was that I was a knitter, right? It's the first thing I told you about me.
It was the first thing I overheard because I'm pretty sure Simona had asked you if you had knit the sweater that you were wearing.
Maybe that's
and
why.
You started, and then you turned sort of fully towards me and were like, "Do you knit?" And I said no because
I thought I asked you if you sew. This is the shirt that you were wearing, and I said, "Is that a William Morris shirt?"
Yeah, that is how.
And then I asked you if you could sew, and then you said,
"Which I can sew,"
and you said yes, and I said I can't sew, but I knit. And then you said I can't knit because I'm too left-handed, and I said I can fix that. And I fixed that.
For many years, I tried and failed to learn knitting from YouTube, but it never. My brain cannot switch it. In that I see what people are doing, even now, like on Instagram, I watch people knit, and then I have to flip it reverse for how I would do it, and my brain is just not capable of doing that.
It takes a while to kind of figure out the physics of your knitting, and then I've talked about this many times. I knit through the back loops, which is a Eastern European style of knitting called, it's not combination style, it's like Eastern style, I think that's what it's called. And so you knit through the back loop and then you wrap it over the needle instead of under the needle so that the stitches is mounted so that you can go in through the back loop easily. So, and I also hold the working yarn in my left hand. And so I said, well, I bet I could teach you how to knit.
Yeah, and it works. I mean,
sure does. Yeah.
I have made things.
Yeah.
I'm making them, looking at a pile of in progress and finished things.
Yeah, you made this hat.
I did. This is the first thing I ever knitted.
This is not the first thing you learned to knit, though. You learned on the scarf.
No, I learned on the scarf, which I didn't bring.
Your arms can't reach this.
Yeah.
Maggie is very little.
I'm very small, but I'm gonna save on yarn because
you are.
I don't need so much to.
I know I look like a giant. Even here, I'm like, I always think it's funny that I look like such a giant next to you because I'm like 5'5", like I'm like a super average size person. And
I'm just
Maggie,
I'm very small.
Giant.
I'm a throwback.
You're a throwback.
I can wear a lot of vintage clothes because it's sized correctly.
Yeah, so this is nice. You made this out of brown sheep prairie spun DK. Do you know what the hat is called? I can't remember what this
It was called the Muffin Hat.
The Muffin Hat.
The Ravelry link is no longer active because it was hosted on a WordPress site that I guess the lady who has it, she had a bunch of cute hats that I wish I'd saved. But yeah, that was a good learn to knit and purl. Yeah, so she learned on a garter, just like scarf. It's still kind of in progress. You still kind of work on it, right? Yeah, when I'm bored.
Yeah, and then I taught you how to purl the next week, and then it was off to the races.
Yeah,
it's very
here we are.
Really
I think we should put a pom pom on it. Yeah. I sent a picture to my mom, and she was like, "Are you gonna put a pom pom on it?"
Yeah, I think you could. Do you want a yarn pom pom or a furry pom pom?
I think a furry pom pom.
Yeah, I think it would be cute.
I'm in a teal and hot pink phase because that's what I keep telling you.
Yeah,
to knit for color work. So maybe if we can do a hot pink pom pom, that would be cute.
Be very cool. You can also get pom poms that they have a snap, so you can take them off. So if you don't want to have,
I have seen those.
Yeah, or you can untie it. Yeah, those are the quality ones because then you can wash the hat without the pom pom on it too. True, which is nice. Yeah, you did a good job.
Thank you. I did a great job and I'm proud of myself, just like in Barbie.
If anyone here has not seen the Barbie movie, you should see the Barbie movie because it's really good. And that's which one of the Barbies says that is the one who wins the Pulitzer Prize?
Yeah, the one who wins the Nobel Prize in Literature. The writer Barbie. I did a good job and I'm proud of myself. And that's become my new mantra.
We have been saying that a lot in the last few weeks.
We've been getting stuff done.
Several times a day to each other. Yes. And so today is... Well, this is going to go up on Tuesday, but we are filming this on Friday, which is the cast on day for TWT Sweater Cal. So if you have not signed up for the Woolly Thistle Sweater Cal, maybe it's not too late. I don't think it's too late. Maggie cast on this morning, which was exciting.
I'm excited.
You are knitting the Humulus
Yes.
pattern by Isabel Kramer.
I'm really excited for that. I love the floral elements. I love that instead of, well, they are flowers, but they're hop blossoms, which I think is really cool. Last week I was in Dublin, Ireland for work, and we went to the Guinness Storehouse, which was awesome. I've been to Dublin before, but I never went there because I thought it was too much of a tourist trap. And it is, but it was really fun. And they had a wall in the storehouse that was like behind glass and showed hops vines and the blossoms. And I was like, I'm gonna knit that. Yeah. That's gonna be a jumper.
That's cute. Yes, I have knitted this. I will put a link to it in the show notes. I knitted it in Briggs and Little Heritage, which is actually kind of like this. I'm sitting here with a cone of Harrisville Highland. It is like quite rustic Canadian wool, kind of underprocessed, lots of bits of vegetable matter, VM. And it was really nice. But this is the only jumper I've ever knit with where I didn't realize that I had two different dye lots. And one of the skeins was a different dye lot, and there's just like a stripe in the middle of the sweater because it's like slightly different.
I've learned recently how important that is.
Yeah, your sweater will look like the Washington Monument otherwise.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I was in Dublin and I was very busy in Dublin. I had 16-hour days,
but basically. You still went to the yarn store.
I took an hour and a half, well, because the hotel was right by the yarn store, but then I was at the office all day. So I just looked at the schedule and I said, do I really need to stay for the demo engineering? Could I just slip out and go to the yarn store? And I knew you would be so proud of me.
I was proud of you.
And I had a nice walk because it ended up being about round trip, like a 3-mile jog, trot through the streets of Dublin.
When you go at a normal person's speed, it kind of has to be a trot because your legs.
No, I power walk. My coworkers had a hard time keeping up with me.
Oh, I believe that.
But yeah. So I went to. This is knit.
This is knit.
This is knit.
Like, this is it, but this is knit.
Which was awesome.
That's how I introduced knit into people. This is knit.
This is knit. They have a really good Instagram page. I am now being served a lot of their Instagram content.
We'll link their Instagram in the description box.
They're fantastic. I had such a nice conversation with a woman there whose name I didn't catch, actually, but we were...
Sometimes you forget.
I was overwhelmed by colors.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
You were.
I was...
I told you to buy the whole store.
I was texting Emma going, I don't know. I want all of them.
Yeah.
But I came in with a plan. I came in with a plan, and I need to stick with the plan.
You did a good job, and the thing that I told you was like, okay, buy the things that you were supposed to buy. Yeah. Maggie's gonna show you what she got. She's gonna show you her haul.
I'm so excited.
But I was like, she was like, well, look at this, and I was like, just get one skein that you didn't plan to buy, and that's what you did.
I got one.
Exactly
so what I went in to buy was yarn for the mackerel cardi
by Espace Chico,
which I'm excited to make because they're a Montreal-based yarn shop, and I used to live in Montreal, so shout out, ladies.
Shout out to
Montreal. Bonjour, hi,
Steph and Naomi. No, used to be.
But so I wanted to get yarn for that, which
I will link that pattern in the show notes. That's a free pattern. It's a wool and mohair held together. So very fluffy cardigan, like kind of cropped with
cardigan. A little cute, like slight balloon sleeve, but not huge.
Yeah, with a little twisted rib cuff, I think.
It's gonna look so nice with just about everything that I wear. So I'm really excited to.
Yeah, and you got a very bespoke color.
Gorgeous. This is.
So this is Life in the Long Grass, and it is silk, 20% silk, and I think it's called Moon.
Yeah.
Life in the Long Grass Moon. So it's 20% silk and 80% merino. And it is a 2-ply. And it feels, I mean, it's quite soft because of the silk content.
I just held it up to my face. Like,
it is like the construction of it. If you picked it up and you didn't touch it, you would think this was an 80-20 sock yarn. So like 80, instead of the 20% silk content, you just think it had 20% nylon content. So, yeah, you have 3 of these.
I have 3 of these.
Well, now it's 4
because one of them split when we were winding it. This is the Connemara marble colorway, which is a really pretty sage green with blue and some gold.
Yeah, there's a lot of Maggie is really into speckles.
I'm in a speckle phase. So I'm excited to experiment with mohair.
I like this little. Yeah, we're gonna dye mohair to. We haven't decided. You haven't decided.
I haven't decided. I'm gonna swatch some if I'm gonna dye to match. Like, it would be nice. What if we see that kind of purpley bit. That's what I was kind of thinking about. What about like a lavender
do that.
mohair?
Color. Yeah, there's like a little purple speck.
Little purple fleck.
That you won't be able to see it unless our faces aren't in the shot. Nah, whatever.
Yeah.
Too hard. That's nice.
Just trust me, it's like a purple, kind of
like a bluish purple.
Bluish. It's not light enough to be lavender. It's more saturated than a lavender.
It's real fun.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm excited about that.
Okay.
And the other one I got was classic
Donegal,
Irish Heather.
Straight from the source.
Straight.
You can get this at the Woolly Thistle, so I'll link that in the show notes.
Smells like sheep. My suitcase smelled like sheep
a little bit
when I opened it.
Smells like your apartment.
Well, it's been in my apartment for the last week.
Smells like that one.
And this is for me to learn how to do cables.
Yeah. Make short sleeve cable jumper.
Because why not just learn all of the techniques?
Learn all the things. I mean, when I learned to knit, I was very young, and I learned how to do cables because I was just like looking through a book, and I was like, let me just try this. I was like 9 or 10, and it worked, but I didn't really do a whole lot with knitting other than knitting and purling and like making plain kind of hats and like striped stuff and scarves until after college when I decided to kind of go ham and learn everything. So you're essentially doing what I did, except you also just learned how to knit and purl.
Well, I have a tendency with picking up hobbies to go
a bit ham,
a bit wild.
Yeah.
I just learned to sew in November.
Yeah.
And
pretty good sewing.
Yeah, I'm not wearing anything that I sewed, but I've made a few dresses. I'm working on a button down shirt, but it went very quickly from here's how a sewing machine works to I need to learn how to custom fit a bodice for myself. And I made that one pair of trousers that don't quite fit me, and I keep telling myself I need to just call the shop and pay for a couple of private lessons to do some trouser fitting.
That would be helpful.
Basics, because I'm really short on trousers. I'm really short, and I'm short on trousers. Really short. So
yeah, that's why you're short on trousers is
because they just don't fit. They don't fit off the rack, and so I just don't buy them.
Maggie is 4 foot. 11.
I'm 4'11".
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not. I have like a normal woman's shape, so the problem with a lot of companies petite sizing is that they assume that if you're short that you must also be like relatively straight or kind of don't have hips and a chest, and I do, and so I also have a 25-inch inseam, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
So
the Lululemon cropped 25-inch leggings fit you like normal leggings.
They are my normal leggings.
Leggings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Life goes on.
Life goes on. You're getting good at sewing. Oh, show them this
one.
Oh
yeah, and then this was the impulse buy in Dublin, because again the color was just so good. So this is Life in the Long Grass. They're fine sock yarn.
So this is a 75-25 sock base.
But this is the Moorlands colorway, and I just loved that sort of green and brown to the blues. It was just so pretty, and I figure I'll learn how to make socks with this. Yeah. Eventually.
You did want to learn to make socks pretty fast, and I was like, well,
because my feet are always cold.
Your feet are always cold. But this is okay. So interesting lesson here. So this is sock yarn. And this has 4 plies, so 75-25 always has 4 plies, and then the 80-20 is like that and has 2 plies. And so they're constructed differently. So if you hold this up, you can't really see the plies because they're so fine. But there's
do they do 1 ply of each fiber, or
no,
I don't know how that works.
It's all combed together.
Spinning is not something that I am ready to learn how to do.
It took me years to
just
get into spinning.
Just yet.
Yeah, maybe at some point. Mitten's also been kind of like resisting, but he's like getting close.
Ask me again in 6 months.
Yeah, so that's fun. You can make some socks with that. That's your haul from Dublin.
That's my haul from Dublin.
That's your haul from Dublin. This is my haul. I got Harrisville Highland cones of Loden Blue.
That's beautiful.
The other day to knit a cardigan for my dad, who doesn't really like sweaters. Where he's never asked me, like I've asked him before, I'm like, do you want me to knit you a sweater? And he's like, no. And then it was like, I don't know, May, and I was home, and he was like, wait, could you knit a cardigan? And I was like, yes, I can knit you a cardigan.
The question is, do you want me to? Not whether I can.
Yes, of course I can. And he was like, oh, can you knit me a cardigan? And I was like, of course course, Dad. So I am now waiting for my mom to send me measurements because I was like, I need you to go into his closet and like find something that he likes to wear and then measure it like across the chest and like down the, you know, here and then like sleeve, and so I can make it the right size. But you can tell I'm on a kick with this color.
I kick with that blue. Well, so am I. I sort of, some of that I talked you into.
You definitely talked me into this spin. So this is a recent spin.
That.
This is my recent Devonia spin in Midnight Glade, which is great. Midnight Glade from Devonia. This is not washed. It's quite like, I think that's the...
I didn't get to touch this yesterday when you like handed it to me.
So this isn't washed yet, but it's this is Devonia, which is a blend from John Arbon, which is...
It kind of sparkles.
A little bit. It's a Wensleydale. So Wensleydale is a luster breed, so 20% of this content is Wensleydale, which is super, super long staple. Like really long, like hairs on the sheep. And then it's like 30% BFL and then 50% Exmoor Blueface, which is BFL crossed with an Exmoor horn. It's called an Exmoor mule. So this is a blend, which makes it a little harder to spin than some things, but just because I talked about this last week, but it is a little bit harder to spin a blend just because the fibers aren't all the same length, which is a little bit of a problem, but you get used to it. And this came out to about a DK weight. Devonia does come in DK weight. You can buy Devonia in yarn, in 4-ply or DK.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy the yarn version.
Are you gonna buy this one? This is my other spin. They look basically identical, but if you hold them up,
no, they're
These are my 2 spins this week. I was in a teal mood. I'm always in a teal mood.
I'll have to see. It depends on what I'm pairing it with. This was the one that I thought would be really nice with hot pink.
No, this was.
Was it? Oh. Yeah. They'd all look good with hot pink. Hot pink is my accent color right now.
Hot pink was my favorite accent color for a while, but now it's that bright green.
This would look good with that bright green.
Yeah, it would. So this is my other spin, which is John Arbon Yarnadelic, which is 100% Falkland Corriedale, and the colorway Indigo Dust. It's kind of gorgeous, but this is like a really deep. It's like teal and black, and they're combed together in the fiber. This is washed. It got quite puffy. I think I might have. Well, it doesn't really matter. I think it's like a little bit too tightly plied, but that's fine. This is about a sport weight. It's about the same yardage as like a Yarnadelic sport weight skein you would buy. This also comes in worsted weight. So if you're gonna make a jumper, you can get this in worsted weight.
Yeah, well, I have until October to decide what I'm going to get.
London?
Yes, that's when I go to London.
Yeah.
To see my friends.
To go to Loop.
I mean, the point of me going to London is to see my friend who is handing in her PhD thesis.
But she also knits.
She also knits, so we're gonna have. She's very excited that and since the last time I saw her in April, that I have now picked up knitting, and so she was like, "Are you gonna bring your whips? Are we gonna knit? Are we gonna just sit in a pub and knit?" And I said, "Yes."
That's what I do all the time. Of course it is. All right. Oh my gosh, I need to go get my jacket because I finished it.
Do you want me to go get it for you?
I'll go get it. Actually, you're closer.
I'm closer.
I'll talk about...
You can talk about my headband.
Okay, let's talk about your headband. So, Maggie is knitting the Humulus sweater by Isabel Kramer, which is colorwork, and she has not knitted colorwork yet. So, we had a little colorwork lesson with some Lopi, and because that's what she is knitting the jumper in. So this is Let Lopi in Rust Heather, and she also has a cream color. But I had Let Lopi and Rust Heather just hanging out in the basement because I knit Nitten's dad a jumper in these 2 colors a couple of years ago for his 60th birthday. And this is the headband that she knit.
Yeah.
So I just kind of cast on some stitches. And
it has not been blocked.
No, it hasn't been blocked
FYI.
yet. I cast on some stitches and I was like, I just did like a ribbed band and was like, I showed her how to do the color work and I was like, here you go. It was just like checkerboard color work. But then we came to the conclusion that it was not going to fit as a headband.
It was way too small. It was like 72 stitches.
Well, I knitted one at 72 stitches and it fit around my head, but it was bigger needles.
Yeah, I knit very tight.
More tightly than I do.
Yeah.
So then you took it out. I told you to cast on a different number and
I made the pattern.
You made up the pattern because I sent you some charts because you were like, well, do I have to do a checkerboard? And I said, no, I'll send you some charts. And you chose some charts.
That's what I came up with.
And it's a little hard to see.
It's a little hard to see. Yeah.
We're still working on color dominance, but that's okay. It looks really good.
No, I'm happy with how it turned out.
Do you want to put it on?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
No.
Let me put this on.
You should put on your pedestal.
Thank you.
I feel like such a proud parent.
Have watched me knit this whole stupid thing. It's so nice.
Well, I told you what to knit the yoke
Yeah,
in.
you did. You helped me pick out the
yoke patterns.
Yoke patterning, that's right. I like really outsourced the this whole thing. I was like, Sarah had this whole thing where she was like, you need to go back to the background color when you get here because it's gonna tie it together. And Sarah's an artist and she was super right. So yeah, I did the bottom band has the same color work pattern. So I mirrored it here. You can see my very neat steak.
Very neat.
It still needs buttons, but otherwise. The neck is a little square, but I think that's okay. I almost took it out and redid it with fewer stitches here. No, it's not okay. It's just the worst thing that's ever happened. I will be wearing this at Rhinebeck. I'll probably be wearing this at Wool and Folk if it's not too warm. We'll see. We will see what happens with Rhinebeck weather this year.
I'm sad that I can't come.
No, Maggie's you're just right before you go home from Estonia.
Right before I get back. Yeah, same trip I'm going to London. I'm doing London as a weekend before my next work trip, which will be to Estonia.
Which is
so if
cool.
anybody knows interesting yarn stores in Tallinn, that would be awesome. Because I've been there once, but not as a knitter. No.
Not as a knitter. Not now. Okay, so actually, I just started talking about your jumper, so why don't you?
Oh, my jumper.
So you are knitting this in Lopi. So what are your thoughts on Lopi?
I like it. I've noticed that. Well, I'm a very tight knitter, and I've noticed that the Lopi really builds volume very quickly, and I like that as compared to some of the fingering weight yarns that I've worked with. That where it just feels like I'm getting nowhere for so long, and then all of a sudden. There's 2 inches. Whereas this, I started this morning and I'm like, look, it's a thing.
It's already a thing. You have a little choker.
Yeah.
Ready for the 90s.
My thoughts were, actually, as I finished this round just now, I was thinking, this has to go over my head.
It will go
and I sort of did a little test of
you want to try
no, it's fine.
But it'll go over your head. 100 stitches, that'll go over your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for this. I'm definitely, after the headband, feeling justified in choosing the ivory for my contrast color because I think it's gonna
pop a little more.
Yeah, that's sand, and they look really nice together, but then when I saw the design, I felt like the complexity of the design was kind of lost a little bit among the rust heather.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, so I hope the ivory will pop more.
Yeah, I still think that dominance is probably the thing that will help you because you can see here these look
it's
the
smaller. Little single stitches
whereas the rust ones look bigger, so I think if we just swap that a little bit it would help. But we'll get there.
We will figure it out.
Take some practice.
You have to teach me how to do German short rows first for this.
German short rows. I always knit German short rows because I don't like wrap and turn short rows because with my method of knitting through the back loops, I don't wrap and turn often leaves a hole. It just doesn't work right. So German short rows work very well. So once you get it, it's not very hard. But
the pattern calls for it, and it calls for it pretty quickly, which is why I was kind of
I'm kind
of focused on getting this ribbing. There's one more round of this ribbing, and then we're basically at the short rows, so you can show me how to do it.
Yeah, so we can do that. That's good. Yeah,
but I'm excited. This is my first jumper.
With sleeves. Haven't shown them the tank top yet, but it's right here.
Okay,
but you are knitting a garment already.
Yes, that I hoped to have some more progress on, but I'm doing all right.
This is from Magpie.
This yarn is from Magpie.
Show me your Magpie tattoo.
Oh yeah.
Is it that one?
This one is the Magpie tattoo. Which you can't really see, and I'm not going to be able to stand up and lean over into the camera.
This one's a hummingbird. Right?
This is a hummingbird, I thought it would get me a discount, but it didn't.
Well, your name is also just so close to
My name is Maggie. I have a magpie tattoo. Magpies are my friends. I know they're terribly unlucky.
Tell them the story about when you found
them. So I lived in the UK for nearly 5 years while I was in grad school, and the end of those 5 years included the start of the COVID pandemic, which meant that I was living in first and second British lockdown in graduate student accommodation, which was just sort of nice enough, but not a place you want to live year round. And my housemates had all gone home, so their rooms were locked. I didn't have a sitting room. I had one bedroom and a kitchen for however long that first lockdown was, about 3 months.
A long time.
Yeah, it started on my birthday, and it went through, I want to say, the middle of July, so end of March through July. And we were not allowed, if you lived alone, you were not allowed to, like, support bubbles were not a thing yet, so I was completely isolated and trying to finish a PhD, which I did finish in a foreign country, in a global pandemic. I was not doing super hot, to put it mildly. And the nice thing about the house where I lived was that there was like a little paved area in the back where you could sit out of an afternoon, which I would take a chair from the kitchen out and sit out there and be like, would a depressed person do this? No, of course not.
You made cake.
And I made cake because I cook and bake when I'm stressed. So the problem with that is then I'm living alone and making a cake every week, so I have to eat the cake or somehow get rid of the cake. And I noticed one day that there was a kind of gnarled looking, kind of chewed up old dude Magpie who was just hopping along the fence, and I knew the folk rhyme from British Isles about magpies being unlucky, and that one magpie is for sorrow, so I was like, yeah, you got that right, brother. But magpies being very smart, like, it sort of kind of hopped over and was like, hey, what you doing? Like, I could tell I had food, right? So I gave it some of my, I think it was carrot cake that week. I gave it some cake. And the next day, I was sitting out there and I was like, oh, it's the same magpie, because I could tell from its kind of wonky wing feathers. And then the next day, same time. And eventually I just gave it cake every time. And so eventually, because they're smart, I was like, oh, around this time of day, this girl sits outside and she gives me food. So as the weeks progressed, more magpies turned up. So I ended up with 5 of them. I named them after the Rolling Stones because the first one reminded me of Keith Richards. So, and it was kind of nice to feel like, oh, there were a couple of days where it was raining and I didn't go outside, and I was in the kitchen, and then I saw like this lineup of 5 birds like looking through the window like, excuse me,
where you at, girl?
Where you at? Where's our cake?
The cake?
And it was really kind of nice in a way, because it felt like, hey, here's some creatures that are looking out for me, kind of. So when I graduated and was back in the UK for my PhD graduation, I was like, I want to commemorate this because it really helped me get through it. And this was the result of that. Yeah, I sent her. She's a really brilliant tattoo. She's done both of my tattoos now. And I just sent her some illustrations from the Kelmscott Chaucer.
William Morris.
Yeah, the woodcuts and some pictures of magpies. And she did this beautiful piece for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm very fond of magpies, and I'm fond of magpie fibers.
Yeah, they're great. I know. They're the best. My mom is also a huge fan of magpie fibers. She goes like, it's like for her, that's like going to see all the celebrities, except it's just yarn.
It was great.
So you like the speckles?
I like the speckles, and all that being said, like, the speckle obsession started at Magpie.
Yeah.
This is going to be the June top from Petite Knits.
So I knitted one of these, and I was wearing it in the first episode.
Alyssa knitted.
Alyssa knitted. That's how. So we have this Maggie's friend Alyssa, who now is also sort of my friend. She knitted. She had it on when we went to Capitol Third.
That's true.
When we saw Renee Fleming.
That was a great moment.
That was an incredible moment.
It was Renee Fleming and Sesame Street.
Sesame Street. But we were sitting on the lawn. So Capitol 4th is like this big PBS concert on 4th of July. And so we went on the 3rd to dress rehearsal because it was less crowded. And with Alyssa,
my friend Alyssa and Luke.
Friends.
Yeah, and some friends of hers.
And Alyssa had Alyssa's a knitter, and she was wearing the June top, and I was like, what is that pattern? That's so great. And she's like, it's the June top, it's 15 knits. We had a conversation.
I knew you guys would get along because I was like, you're my 2 knitter friends. And
so
sure enough, Luke and I just sort of sat there drinking our Arnold Palmers and then Alyssa talked for probably 45 minutes solid about knitting.
Well, you knit too. So
now I'm there. I wasn't there I did not have. Oh yeah, I did. I had the hat.
So anyway, we were at this event and we'd gone to sit inside because it's raining, and then we got back out.
Sitting in the congressional parking garage.
Of the what building was that?
One of the house.
It was one of the
office buildings.
Everyone knew. I was like, I'm sitting in the parking garage of the building, and all my friends were like, "You're what?" And I was like, I don't have no significance. Oh, I didn't wear my White Devil t-shirt. I forgot about that. Well, yeah, you can sort of see it with my jacket.
And I'm wearing my William Morris t-shirt because I'm nothing if not consistent.
You truly are. But anyway, then we were listening to them. The dress rehearsal hadn't started yet. It started at 8 o'clock.
They were doing a
sound check, and we were sitting on the lawn, listening,
minding our own business,
knitting, whatever, and then someone started singing "My Country, 'Tis of Thee," and a couple minutes in, Maggie looked at me. She's like, "Who's singing this?" She's
like, "That voice is
really
really
I think
familiar."
it's Audra McDonald.
I did think it was Audra McDonald at first.
It's Audra McDonald. Yeah, maybe it is. And I was like, "Oh,
and then
cool."
I saw her.
Oh my gosh!
And I turned to Emma and I sort
you
of clutched her.
You were like,
said, "Emma, it's Renee
Fleming." We stared at each other. We were like.
Just a small meltdown.
So if people here are not aware of who Renee Fleming is, which might be a normal thing, Renee Fleming is
not a normal thing. Go Google her.
Very famous, probably the most famous American opera singer.
Beverly Sills.
Yeah, but she's
of this generation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and Renee's retired, but she's
stunning.
Easily one of the most famous American opera singers of all time. Amazing singer. And it was Renee Fleming.
And she's the reason I got into opera in the first. She's the reason I got into opera. She's the reason I got into Russian literature and culture, because it was a Russian opera that she was singing in. And my 14-year-old brain was like, I can't process these feelings that Tchaikovsky has made me feel. So I'm going to just go read everything I can.
We also heard Czech that night.
We did.
We heard the 1812 overture with the real cannons.
We were the only people
we were headbanging
to the 1812 overture.
That was really fun.
It
was really funny. The 1812 with the real cannons. They didn't have the fireworks because it was just the dress rehearsal.
But they did have the cannons.
Have the real cannons, and they went off, and they were loud. And it was deeply a lot. It was amazing.
Piotr Ilyich would have been proud.
He would have been.
So
R.I.P. Czech. He would have loved Capital Fourth. Belinda Carlisle sang. And Sesame Street was there.
Yeah, the other meltdown was when I hadn't looked at the schedule ahead of time, so I didn't know.
We had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, and Alyssa said, "Oh, Sesame Street's coming too," and I went, "What?"
Yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming.
Elmo and Cookie Monster, and I cried. I cried
there were two. Bit. I cried too when Renee Fleming sang "Climb Every Mountain."
That was your moment. Your favorite musical and your favorite soprano.
I don't know if she's my favorite soprano. She's up there.
She's up there.
She personally, as a person who influenced me, I think or when I read her book, it kind of changed me. I was probably about 17.
Yeah. I had an autograph card from her. My dad had written to her saying that her performance in Eugene Onegin had inspired me to become a singer, and that I had a new sort of purpose, and that's what I ended up doing in undergrad and then in grad school. But all of that was to come. And she sent a little card that she'd autographed and said to Maggie. Yeah. And I lost it. I've lost it. Yeah. I should write back to her and say, "Dear Renee, you will not remember this." But yeah, I keep looking for it, but somewhere in the many international moves since that time, it has been lost. So anyway, that's the June top.
This is the June top, and it has do you know what colorway this is?
Paris Train.
And you got London Rain also?
Yeah, because I'm a simple girl. I see London themed stuff, I buy it.
Yeah, no, same. Hard same. This is real nice.
That's bottom up, so obviously that's the bottom of it. And the pooling is really... I was concerned that this ivory color was going to be too close to my skin tone, but then with the pooling, there's been so much... There's enough color in it that it's going to look great.
Oh, it's going to look great. Yeah.
And I love this yarn. I love working with it. It goes really fast. I probably did 3 inches of this on the flight back from Dublin while watching Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah. You had a nice time.
I did.
Watching a lot of movies.
Yeah. I got upgraded.
Yeah.
Business travel.
Travel. Yeah. So what am I going to knit for this Cal? It's here. I was supposed to have cast it on already.
There's still time.
I wanted to spin this morning. I did.
It's only 4.
Oh, there's time. 20. I'm going to cast this on today. So I talked about this, and if you watch the Lake Thistle Shopcast, which you should, and they're linked in the description box. This is Wool Dreamers Sayona, I don't know. This is a wool cotton blend, and it is fingering weight. It is 50-gram ball and 240 yards. So that's pretty lightweight. It's a wool cotton blend, like I said, which is the correct like content of the fiber for the sweater that I'm making, which is a super simple summer sweater by Joji Locatelli. But that's knitted in Mungo, which is a Retrosaria Rosa Pomar yarn, also from Portugal. So it's a similar part of the world. This is from Spain, but it's a worsted weight. And so the gauge for that is 17.5 stitches over 4 inches. So I did a gauge swatch. I wanted it to be pretty drapey and quite loose. And I knitted it swatch on like a size 5, and I got 20 stitches over 4 inches. So I am going to be knitting the second size because based on the gauge swatch, 19-20 stitches over 4 inches, that will give me the right amount of ease. And the sweater, I'll link the pattern in the show notes, but the sweater is big wide stripes. It's just a circular yoke pullover with huge stripes. Very simple, super simple summer sweater. So I might be wearing that at Rhinebeck if it's really warm. We'll see. Last year I finished knitting a big Fair Isle piece, my Hilda jumper, in time for Rhinebeck, and I wore that to Wool and Folk. And then I knitted Andrea Mallory's Alpenglow sweater last year, which was the like Rhinebeck sweater.
I want to knit that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I went through all of Andrea Mallory's patterns and sent them to Emma, and Emma told me which ones I'm able to do now versus not.
We'll get to.
We'll get to.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a nice one. Actually, it's a good pattern for you because you have narrow shoulders.
I have very narrow shoulders.
And my shoulders are very wide, so I'm giving that sweater to my mom because it doesn't fit me.
I have to put extra padding in. Actually, that's one of the things I learned when sewing. I highly recommend that people learn how to sew because if you have body image issues, which I think most people do, sewing kind of makes you, and I think knitting as well, because you're custom making a garment for yourself, and it teaches you to kind of understand what your physiology is and how it kind of empowers you to feel nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, as soon as I kind of learned like, oh, my shoulders are really narrow, and that's why some tops can make me look a little top heavy because the shoulder isn't balanced out in proportion to the rest of my torso. And as soon as I thought, oh, like I could just put the tiniest of puff sleeve here, and it was suddenly it looks good.
It totally does. Yeah, and so something like this, which I did not use a pattern. I had to just measure myself and think, okay, well, how wide do I want this around? Okay, that's my gauge math. This is how many stitches I'm going to cast on. And so the first time I tried to knit a piece in this style, I knitted the Maya's jacket or cardigan, which is by Violet McQuaid, and it's a pattern that she designed for Jameson's of Shetland, which is a Shetland yarn company, obviously. And it is very lightweight. Spindrift, the Spindrift wool is very lightweight. Spindrift is amazing. It comes in like 250 colors or something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like amazing. And they completely produce it on Shetland, which is also astounding. And it's really soft. It's a little bit softer than Jameson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, which is what I knitted this in. Well, the charcoal is Jameson Smith 2-ply in color 81. And then the white is Rama Lamel Garn in colorway 12. So it is a charcoal and like a light gray. I didn't want a stark white and black.
No, but I think there's enough contrast in there without it being really kind of kapow.
It's perfect. So the colors went really well together and the yarns played very well together. So this was great. And then
it looks awesome.
Yeah, because the Maya's sweater was too small. It was just, it fits me, but like the
too
sleeves
small
a
from
short.
Just like a proportions perspective.
Yeah, the whole thing, like it's a normally proportioned piece, but it's like too small for me. So my aunt, who's teeny weeny, is gonna get it because she's just teeny weeny, like very thin and a marathon runner and small, shorter than I am, so it like shorter arms, so it would fit her. Yeah, because the bust, it doesn't really close over my bust.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
So this one, I just learned, okay, well, you need to knit it with about the same number of stitches, but you're going to go up a couple of needle sizes. And
yeah, that's been new to me, the idea that different needle sizes will affect that. It's a whole new world, right? Like I knew, made sense to me that the yarn could affect it because like obviously this yarn is thinner than the Loki has a lot more body.
It's thicker. This is a fingering weight yarn and that's a worsted Aran weight yarn.
Yeah. But then the idea that the needle size would have an effect on that as well, I sort of am still kind of wrapping my head around the mechanics of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you go, I mean, there is definitely like kind of there's sweet spots for certain yarns. Obviously, like, you know, you don't want to knit like a worsted weight yarn on like a size 2 needle because it will simply make your hands hurt. But there are also like exceptions. For instance, I knit a lot of, you know, lightweight fingering weight sweaters on a needle that most people would probably think was too big, to get kind of a drapey fabric, and also makes the yarn go further. So that's actually great. I really like doing that. Even though, and like it depends on the yarn. Like I wouldn't knit like a single ply merino superwash single at 20 stitches over 4 inches gauge because it would just like immediately disintegrate and stretch to high heaven. But maybe if I were knitting a shawl.
Yeah, we were going to talk about how superwash yarn can stretch.
Yes.
Because that was my friend Julia, who I'm going to be visiting in London in a few weeks. When I told her about this top that I was making and sent her a link to the Magpie yarn, she said, oh, you know, superwash yarn is going to stretch, right?
And it does. So, yeah, so you did ask me, do I need to block this? And I said, well, I think at that gauge it's probably not going to grow very much. But so mine, which I think I showed last week, because I'm working on this too, so that when Maggie gets to the
so that I can learn how to split,
she can learn how to do it. We can kind of do that part together. Because when I finished it, I was like, I want this in every color of every possible.
I'm excited for this. I'm not normally a tank top person.
No, it's going to be really cute.
But it's going to be just how soft this fabric is. I'm
like a nice piece.
So happy.
So mine is, and it's a similar yarn actually. It's a little bit of a different yarn construction, but it's also merino cashmere nylon. So this is Swanky Sock.
Swanky Sock
from Magpie, which is
fancy
merino cashmere nylon blend. And so I'm also knitting in merino cashmere nylon blend. It's a little bit more of a tight twist, but I did block mine because you're knitting at about 25, 26 stitches over 4 inches.
Yeah, I think it was 26.
And mine
I have to check my notebook.
20 stitches over 4 inches. Shockingly.
It's pretty tight.
Excuse me. Shockingly, on a smaller needle than the one. Just how much of a loose knitter I am. And how much of a tight. Well, I think you're probably more normal.
I don't know. I just went with like what looked nice to me.
Yeah.
I'm just what I'm proud of with this one is that the stockinette has stayed remarkably even.
Yeah, it's very consistent.
Considering that I have been doing this while sitting in an office or on an airplane and not just kind of hanging out on my couch watching. What have I been watching? Harry Potter marathon, because that's what I do when I'm tired.
Me too. We watched, between the two of us, I think we've watched
all of them
except
7.
All of them except 7.
Yeah.
You watched? No, because I watched 6.
Oh, I have not rewatched 6.
Neither of us watched 7.
No.
We started it when I was over a couple weekends ago.
When we were doing the color work.
Yeah,
we watched
practice.
1.
That's when we watched 1. That's right, that's when it started. And then I started listening to them again. And that has not stopped. This was, anyway, lots of Harry Potter. But yeah, so you're gonna knit your Humulus sweater.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be kind of switching. I will not have too many whips at one time because I also have 2 sewing projects that need to get off the ground. I cut the fabric.
You did.
I've cut the fabric. I cut the fabric from the Toronto fabric, and I'm still doing fitting on the wrap dress because that is going to require a fair. It's a what's the pattern called?
Liesl dress, right?
Yeah, it's Liesl & Co. Saint Germain dress for any sewers out there, and it's a kind of wrap shirt dress, so it buttons up but it kind of off center, and there's a nice wide waistband, a kind of wrap top to it with a either knee length or midi skirt, which obviously I'm going to be whacking about at least 4 inches off of the knee length skirt just to be the length that I would like it to be, which is
your knee length.
I would like it to be slightly above the knee, or maybe kind of mid knee, depending on the drape of the fabric. And then it has kind of, the option I've decided on for the sleeves is kind of like a flutter sleeve, which I'm gonna have to reduce in volume because otherwise I'll just have sort of wings of fabric hanging off my narrow shoulders, and that won't work. So I'm trying to do the fitting on that, which is fun because I'm fitting it in just regular muslin, and obviously I have no sense of how the lawn cotton that I'm gonna
really nice
sew it in, the
from
really
Liberty.
nice lawn cotton that I got from Liberty.
I remember when you were at Liberty and you were like, there was so much.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, when I lived in the UK, I didn't
I remember the morning that you were there because it was like 6:30 and I texted you something and you were there and you were like, your response was, oh, thank God you're up.
Thank God you're up. I'm at Liberty. I was a grad student. I was living off of about 15,000 pounds a year, which is not Liberty money, FYI. It was fine. I made it work, but I used to have fancy days. I called it my fancy day out in London, where I would take the bus from Oxford into Notting Hill, have a nice little walk around Notting Hill. That is where I saw Colin Firth in the Waitrose.
I don't know if I've told my viewers the story about how my mom is friends with Colin Firth's mom, but my mom is friends with Colin Firth's mom. I've slept in his bed. I was 9. He was not in the bed.
That sounds so wrong.
I know, he's not in the bed. It was his childhood home.
But yeah, so I would get the bus into Notting Hill, get off, and then get the tube into central London. And my specific like self-care fancy day was that I have this like as a walk that I sort of think about when I'm sad. I would go to Fortnum & Mason and sample everything and maybe get like 1 tin of tea, because actually the Fortnum & Mason loose leaf tea is not expensive at all, especially if you have the tin already and are just getting a bag of refill. It's like maybe, I don't know, 7-8 pounds for about 100 grams, which will get you places. So I do that, and then there's weirdly in Soho there's like a kind of part of town where there's a bunch of antiquarian bookstores kind of all next to each other. So I would sort of press my little face against the glass and stare at the books. And then I would end my walk at Liberty and go and stare at all the fabric, which I didn't know how to sew yet, but it was one of those things that I said, when I have money, I'm going to take sewing classes and I'm going to start making my own clothes. And when I do, I'm going to come back to Liberty and I'm going to buy all of the fabric.
You super did.
And now I've done that. And it's kind of, it's nice to be a grown up with a real job and disposable income that I can spend on fabric and yarn.
I know, amazing.
Because
whomst.
Yeah, my partner will often just sort of ruefully be like, wow, you're such a hobbit.
You're a hobbit.
I am a hobbit. Do you have a problem with that?
Yeah.
He's like, no.
You're a hobbit. All right, well, this has been 48 minutes, so we should probably end our confession, as I like to call it. So, this was fun. Nice work.
Thanks.
With your knitting and your...
I'm proud of I did a great job and I'm proud of myself.
Yep.
Or I can't say past tense because these are my whips, so I'm doing a great job.
You are doing a great job.
And I'm proud of myself.
Great. All right, well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Totally.
Amazing. It's a fun time.
I can be a sort of temporary guest because I don't live in Baltimore.
You're here a lot, though.
I'm here when there's a baseball. We'll see when baseball season ends.
Tonight.
Yeah. How often I'll be here, but
yeah. I can usually talk you into coming to Baltimore if I tell you I'm gonna make food.
You say we can make food.
No, I make all the food. You
say
that's
we.
True.
You have recently. It's nice to have a break from cooking because normally I'm the one doing all the cooking.
Yeah. Well, because you live alone, so that's what happens. But all right, thank you for watching. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma and guest.
And guest.
Bye.